they're the people that kind of set the tone for the company, creators of the culture, the implementers of the culture of the company, and set the direction for the culture and how employees will be successful within the organization. They're the ones that really guide the ship from the employee perspective. It's an incredibly crucial role for organizations to have. From an ethics perspective, if you're using AI, I think that you need to make people aware that you're using AI, whether it's if you're customers or employees. Now, do I think that you need to let them know that you use spell check on an AI-powered spell check on your emails or on your Word documents? No. However, if you're providing a lot of feedback to employees, I think it's incredibly important. And I think there's a huge ethical consideration on letting them know.
Here's a pre-show scenario for you. Imagine you had to visit 16 houses just to cook your dinner. One place has the pots and pans, one has the stove, another has the food. You get the idea. Sounds ridiculous, right? Well, the reality is most global businesses operate the same way, using 16 different tools to hire, pay, manage, and develop their workforce. But now there's one platform that does it all. Deel. That's DEEL. Deel is your forever people platform built for global payroll and HR. So whether you're an enterprise business, a small company, or something in between, Deel works for your entire team. So are you ready to transform your global payroll and HR processes? If you are, click the link in the show notes to book a demo with Deel today. That's DEEL. Hello and welcome back to the HR L&D Podcast, where we're going to explore the intersection of human resources and learning and development with industry pioneers and leaders. I'm your host today. My name is Nick Day. I'm CEO at JJ Recruitment Group. We're specialist global HR recruiters with operations now in the US and Europe and the UK as well. Now, today we're joined by Dale Thomas, who is an innovative leader in the AI and HR tech space. And he's someone who's been focusing on leveraging generative AI to streamline and enhance various HR processes. Now, I know that for many of you who listen to this show, we really want to get to grips with how AI can really improve the HR process. But where do we start? How can we utilize it? It's such a big word at the moment that's used in every single blog and webinar and everything we look at. How can we really get to grips? How can we create that roadmap? Well, I've asked Dale to join me today because his company, Actionable Ops, is at the forefront of integrating HR practices with AI solutions. So from recruitment to employee engagement to onboarding and more, Dale is here today to really help discuss some of the transformative potential that generative AI in HR can have to help us discover exactly how it's reshaping the HR landscape as well. But rather than me bring it to the fore, I'm going to welcome Dale to the show because he's the expert we have on the show today. So Dale Thomas, welcome to the HR L&D Podcast. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling great. Thanks a lot for having me on the show. I'm really excited to be here.
Really excited because this is hot topic for HR professionals right now. Where do we even get started in the world of AI? Before we dive in, I'm going to ask a foundational question I ask all of my guests, which is this: what do the words human resources mean to you?
Well, to me, I think the words human resources means they're the people that kind of set the tone for the company. They're the creators of the culture, or they not necessarily the creators, but the implementers of the culture of the company and set the direction for the culture and how employees will be successful within the organization. They're the ones that really guide the ship from the employee perspective. So I think it's an incredibly crucial role for organizations to have a really good HR team and organization.
Fantastic. Well, it's a great place to start. And something that's really important to me and something that I found on your website is that you've done a lot of AI streamlining, shall we say, using generative AI to really improve the recruitment process. And as a recruiter, that obviously excites me. And my research told me that you've done a lot of work in not just improving the recruitment process, but also improving the way that candidates are matched and the onboarding and engagement experience. So maybe we start there for today, just to bring that sort of, I guess, the world of AI to the fore of HR professionals. Let's start with recruitment. How can we use generative AI to start streamlining some of our processes?
Well, I mean, for the most part, if people want to start leveraging AI to streamline those processes, I think anybody who's messed around with any of the Gen AI tools out there, ChatGPT or Perplexity, knows that you could do content creation. So I wouldn't necessarily. I was going to say I wouldn't necessarily say have it start with your job descriptions, but at the end of the day, have it start with your job descriptions. I think it makes it an incredibly useful tool to be able to tell it what the key skills are, what the key responsibilities are, and allow it to create these job descriptions on your behalf, minimizing the efforts and the time spent doing it. From there, you can have it screen these candidates, the resumes. And I know there's a lot of tools within some of the ATS systems that are already doing this, but I think leveraging some of the Gen AI and the AI capabilities actually puts it in overdrive. There's the more and more there are more and more tools coming on place where you can do, when you're doing your candidate screening, using like image AI or what they call vision AI, which actually takes a look at the candidate, reading their facial expressions, the words they're using, to really give you a deeper profile into that candidate. And I think as these tools are getting developed, we will start seeing that more and more. I noticed, even my meeting note taker that I recently started using within the last couple of weeks, and one of the reasons why I did it is because it does have a vision AI component to it. So it'll tell me how I came across to people, how other people were engaging with me as I was talking to them. It'll give me a charisma score and an engagement score, so it'll help me become a better person while I'm in meetings, which I think is going to be incredibly useful. And I think we're going to see more and more HR organizations or recruiters, headhunters leveraging those type of tools. Now, I say all this, and I think the important thing is to also note, so I love technology and I love AI, but I don't think AI should ever replace that human connection of recruiters trying to find the right fit for the organization. I say that both as somebody who's as for people out there looking. I don't think it's a good thing, and I don't think it's a good thing for the organization to leverage too much on AI as you're trying to build relationships with people, because at the end of the day, that's really what it's about. And I know a lot of organizations are heavily relying on some of these different tools to filter many resumes, and I think it's creating kind of a negative space in some communities, like on LinkedIn, for how some of the AI tools are being leveraged.
I'm really glad you raised that point. I couldn't agree more. Obviously, I see it from a different lens to most. I work in the world of external recruitment, so we see CVs en masse, and we see some of the processes that are being deployed at scale. And I think, one thing that I've come to realize through AI is really good at replicating and taking manual work away from us in terms of those skill-based work. But it's the nuanced work still needs that human input. The thing that involves the attributes that humans bring to a conversation, to a review, to any kind of analysis. It's so nuanced that sometimes it can be dangerous to over rely on the AI to do that work for us for those very reasons. So I'm really glad you raised that, because it doesn't just stop at recruitment. Obviously, some of the practical ways that you've been supporting HR organizations through AI is also not just to the job description and an opening process. It's enhancing the employee onboarding experience and that training experience as well. And the one thing I really wanted to bring out today's show was, I guess, helping people to understand that it is a human relationship with AI that we really need to, nurture and look after. We're not looking at just suddenly saying AI is going to take over everything here, but it can really save us some significant amounts of time if we use it wisely. So what if you can bring up some of those practices, some of those streamlining efficiency savings, I guess, and things that you've been implementing that really help save HR professionals time?
So I'm sorry, what was the first part of that question? I'm sorry.
I guess just taking it a little bit beyond the recruitment process, because I know that you've been using it to support employee onboarding, training, the employee experience. And I just wonder if you could bring some of those systems into the fore.
Sure. Well, the area that we've helped out some of the different organizations, there's actually a couple different areas, but one of I think the biggest areas, and I think it's a win-win for both the employees and HR, is when we're talking about deploying knowledge bases and chatbots to the organization. And these are these highly specialized chatbots that know all of your policies. They know all of your training and the different manuals that you may have in place for the employees to be able to answer 99% of those questions that get answered or get asked every day. All those repetitive questions that are time consuming. Now, when deploying these chatbots, you can really reduce a lot of that workload. So we use a platform called Text Cortex, which allows us to create chatbots and knowledge bases within seconds, which is really important because there's not only is there no coding, there's no it's not low code, it's just no code. So you can create a knowledge base, and if you're using a Google Drive or a Microsoft OneDrive, you can put all your policies in one place, have it synced over to the Text Cortex platform, and then you have your policies knowledge base up and running within a matter of minutes, really. So it's very efficient, very fast. So that's one of the things that I've seen these organizations doing, and we've deployed out there as well. If organizations are using tools like Grammarly, again, that's an all AI or becoming more and more AI powered type of tool. Or if you're using Gmail or Office 365, those are both AI powered tools when you're talking about spell checking, and when it's, and of course the term is escaping me the moment I was thinking about it, where it's telling you what the next word may be. It's really just taking a guess at what that word should be, and at the end of the day, that's what Gen AI is really doing, guessing what words it should be put in front of you based off the training that it's had. So the knowledge bases are a huge thing because they're so easy to implement for people and organizations. So that's the number one area that I'm seeing it. Survey data is another, because you talked about some of the nuanced information that's coming across. When you're doing employee surveys, you get this mass amount of data, and of course it depends on how many employees and how many questions you have, and it's really sometimes hard to interpret that data. And one of the things that I've loved doing, I've done it for many organizations, is how do we take that survey data, and not only do we turn it into like actionable and meaningful information, but how do we kind of take a look at that nuanced information that's coming in? Maybe there's a free text box that you would read whatever the employee wrote, and maybe it's not that one employee's statement, but maybe it's all of their statements combined that may cause either a red flag or may give you deeper insights to how that employee is truly feeling. And it allows you to really try to understand where you can develop additional policies, or kind of, I guess it's that finger on the pulse of the business as well through this information that you can get through survey data, which to me, again, it was very hard to ever really understand, well, what do I do with this information? It's a lot of these survey tools will, tell you 66% of the employees said this, that, or the other thing. However, I think it's a lot of that free text information and what the employees aren't coming out directly to say, that AI can really help try to tell that story.
So what about then for HR professionals that are going through things like performance evaluations, or we're trying to evaluate skill gaps? How can we start to utilize things like generative AI to help us with those kind of challenges?
So I think the easiest way is when you're taking a look at if you're keeping like accurate notes and information about that employee and the employees contributing to performance evaluations, you can really help have it, again, tell that story about what might be a good direction for that employee. Maybe they're trying to level up and they need some help, or maybe they're trying to go to a different group within the organization and they really need help. It's all about what information that you provide these Gen AI tools, and then how you're going about asking the AI for this information. And of course, there was a specific thing I was just thinking about, and as I put it on hold, it completely went out of my mind. So I forget exactly what I was going to say. But yeah, I mean that's where you can start with it.
I mean, from an HR standpoint, there's a lot they've got to manage. They obviously want to embrace generative AI. They want to be able to utilize it to streamline their processes. One of the biggest challenges HR professionals have is understanding their employees better. We want to try and improve wellness. We want to try and improve financial health. We want to try and improve employee engagement. And why is that important? Because from a recruitment standpoint, we want to help improve our employee retention. I guess
Sure.
what would be really lovely to understand from our listeners' point of view, what are kind of the ways that we can use Gen AI in all of those different sort of remits, if you like, to really improve that employee experience piece, to really drive improvements in things like attrition?
Well, it's going about, again, it's what the AI has access to will really determine, I think, how much work it's going to do on its own, or if you're actually trying to get information from it. If you have AI agents out there, and this is what we've recently started doing, is creating AI agents, which are um, highly developed AI tools that can, I don't want to say think on their own, because that kind of gets into that scary, or is AI taking over thing. But these tools that can they're autonomous agents that can help you decide, the direction of your organization. And I know this isn't necessarily exactly answering your question, because I think it's going to be really challenging to answer depending on the information that you've given it. And that's really what it's about. Because and the one thing I want to take a step back and just make sure I touch on it, is as we talk about how do we improve employees, and when employees are using AI, or organizations are AI, the one thing that's incredibly important to know is the biases that are within a lot of these different models that are out there. And if
Right.
people aren't using this information already, or aren't familiar with this already, they really need to know that, just like the internet, and it's like, if you're spending half your day on LinkedIn or Facebook or whatever social media platform you're on, the algorithms kind of direct you based off of your previous preferences and what it knows about you. AI is very similar. So if it's been trained on biased information that it found online, the information that it's going to be feeding your organization is going to be biased as well. So this goes back to the human oversight within AI, that AI should never just be, um, or people should never just be allowed to just run free with it, because you have to know about these biases. You have to have a game plan to kind of address biases when they come up, and how you want to attack it. So I just want to make sure that we cover that, especially when we're talking about HR. Uh,
Sure.
Last thing
Are
in
there any
HR
other
would be,
ethical considerations they should be considering as well? Or is bias the one we really need to be mindful of?
um, bias is a big one. From an ethics perspective, if you're using AI, I think that you need to make people aware that you're using AI, whether it's if you're customers or employees. Now, do I think that you need to let them know that you use spell check, on an AI powered spell check on your emails or on your Word documents? No. However, if you're providing a lot of feedback to employees, I think it's incredibly important, and I think there's a huge ethical consideration on letting them know that part of the review, or if a tool was developed using AI, that you just let these employees know. If you're Now, I don't think you necessarily need to do it if your like marketing team is using AI to create different marketing campaigns. Um, but I think it's incredibly important, if in an HR perspective, that the information that you're providing employees AI generated, that you let them know. So you have to be transparent. You have to be aware of the biases that are out there. You have to be fair when leveraging these AI tools. Um, and as we talk about some of this ethical and responsible AI, the employees do have that concern, that, or some employees may have that concern, that AI is going to take over their jobs, which AI will take over some jobs. It will happen. However, so when these organizations are thinking about deploying AI to their organization, I tell people to do a slow roll, and don't just release all the tools at once. Let employees have access to some tools, and then see how they're using it, get feedback from the employees, and then add more tools as necessary. There's so much anxiety, and to be honest, this changes so fast, that the way we use AI today, next week could be different, which is one of the reasons why my book was so short when I wrote it was I knew that the moment I published it, parts of it would be outdated, which were absolutely true. And now I have to go back and update it. And it's the same thing with just these AI tools that are coming out. Um, we're at this wild west of AI, and this is why I hesitate ever calling myself an expert, because I don't think I'm an expert at all. I consider myself more of an explorer, because it is such a new frontier, and there's so many new tools coming down the pipes that it's just hard to have an expertise unless you've been doing machine learning for 5 or 10 years. Those type of folks I would consider more experts. And then the other thing that I was just thinking about is HR organizations need to be aware of any regulations, just like any other laws that affect their region and their areas. They need to know if there's any AI regulations that will impact them. California and New York City here in the States both have AI legislation. Colorado, I think, is coming on board. I know there's some federal legislation being kicked around. Of course, Europe has their regulations, and so it's incredibly important for HR leaders and businesses who are trying to deploy AI to at least be aware of what those regulations are and how that data is being used, that you're not only providing it, but your employees are getting from different tools. And
Yeah,
I know
really,
I went off a little bit of a tangent there.
No, they're important points to raise. Particularly if we're going to start embracing AI, right? We need to understand the compliance regulations and the ethical ways that we utilize it. A couple of things I want to come back to. I want to first start with the AI agents. I want to educate and bring our listeners up to speed with what that is, and just so they fully understand, because in the future, if these are being deployed now, they may not be being deployed everywhere, but they're going to be more widespread as we start to evolve our knowledge of AI, right? So I wonder if you can just bring to the fore what an AI agent is and what it can do for an organization, or how it can support. And then the second part, which is a completely separate question, but I think it's a good place to raise it, it's just actually talk a little bit about your book, because you have written the AI guidance, particularly for small businesses, but I guess it will give us some context as to where your knowledge has come from and how you framed that, so for people to understand where they can start if they want to create their own AI roadmap, so to speak, for their own sort of HR operations or for their own organizations. But let's start with the AI agent, if you can. I wonder if you can bring that to life for us. Hello, HR and people leaders. Are you exhausted of the war for talent cliche? The problem is, when we hear a cliche, it usually exists for a reason. However, we think it's time for a fresh approach to the talent crisis. That's because at JGA Recruitment, we understand the real challenges you face in sourcing phenomenal HR and people candidates. And guess what? We think we have the solution. Our team is on a mission to revolutionize your hiring process. That's because we're not just recruiters, we're strategic partners dedicated to finding HR and people professionals who align perfectly with your company's vision and goals. So let's break the cycle of frustration together. Partner your talent acquisition strategies with JGA Recruitment and experience the difference in service, excellence, and results. No longer do you need to suffer the costs associated with a poor hire, because with over 100 5-star Google reviews and already trusted by many of the world's leading brands, why don't you take action today? Contact us at jgarecruitment.com to discover how we can help transform your HR and people teams. And here's a bonus. When you visit us, you can sign up for our weekly HR newsletter that's packed with invaluable industry insights and more. Let's revolutionize your HR talent acquisition strategies together and make the war for talent a cry from the past. Visit jjrecruitment.com to find out more.
So, and to be fully transparent, agents are something newer for us, and we are just getting started on them. So again, this is definitely something I don't want to come off like I'm an expert. But the agents have a lot of different use cases. One client, we are building agents to allow them to do document classification. And what that means is we either point it to a shared folder, and the agent will listen to it, or they could tell it, to go out and take a look at this folder. It takes a look at all the documents in it, and using different types of language models. It will review anything that's in that folder, whether it's an image, a PDF, um, or Word doc, and then it understands what's in that folder or what type of document it is, and then it'll start classifying this document. And we're doing this for the financial services space right now. So it'll classify the different documents, help organize the different documents, not physically move them, though it could physically move the documents through the APIs. However, it just lists out what type of documents are in there, and then um, it'll also share any kind of concerns it has about the documents. Maybe the person didn't add all of their information, so it could do like different types of checklists. Excuse me. It can create a list of all the information that's in there and then say what's missing. So that's how we're using it with financial services is what other type of information would be helpful to the financial planner. And the AI is generating that all on its own. You can connect AI and agents are kind of like automation as well. If you're familiar with either make.com or zapier.com, it's kind of like that, but I think it takes it to a new level because the agents are smarter than just workflow automation,
Yeah.
and it can do a lot of different things. And so again, we're at the forefront of this, so it's all new technology. But I think the greatest uses of like a voice agent was here, at least here in the States, was McDonald's was using the voice agent in the drive-through. So when you came and ordered from McDonald's, you could just have a conversation with it. And to me, I thought it was incredibly accurate and an incredibly useful tool. So for organizations that want to leverage those type of tools, um, you can do. We have an insurance company that's based here in Kansas City, where I'm at, who deployed AI voice agents in their call centers and reduced the overall spending on call center resources by millions of dollars, because most of the questions can now be answered through a voice agent. So you can talk to it and have regular conversations with it. And we're gonna, I think, see more and more of that, which I think is a good use of it, versus a phone tree, like an IVR phone tree, which are just, I hate those
Painful.
things. So
Yeah.
if we can get rid of that, and I could just tell the AI, hey, I need to talk to somebody about my account without having to go through 14 levels of IVRs that put me in the wrong place, I think that's a great use. So again, agents are something new that we're doing, and we're just getting started with building these out. But I think that we're going to see more and more of these come online on these complete end-to-end systems. Um, and then as far as my book, so I wrote the book because it started out, I was just curious on if somebody were to write a book towards small business, um, what would that look like? And so I asked I call it my assistant, my co-pilot, my chat tool, which again is Text Cortex. If you were to write a book on small AI for small business, what would that framework look like? What would the chapters look like? And as it kind of started giving me all this information, I realized that I actually knew most of it, about 80-90% of it. And I thought I might be able to provide business owners and leaders with a different perspective on AI, because everybody wants to sell 5,000 different prompts to achieve whatever it is.
Yeah.
But to me, it was incredibly important to try to lay a foundation of AI, kind of the history of it, where it's been, where it's going to, how businesses can harness AI for different areas of their business. So so I started writing the book, and I knew it had to be. I wanted to get to market really quick, so I spent about 2 months, pretty much full time, writing the book, which is one of the reasons why it's short, or a smaller book. It's a quick read. I think a lot of people are reading it in the afternoon. But to also address the elephant in the room, yes, I used AI to write part of the book, and I've been very transparent about that. It's the first chapter, or first sentence of the first chapter, talks about how I used it. And again, it was filling in maybe that 10% of information I didn't know, and help just filling in the gaps. But I did write most of the book myself. So it's called the Ultimate AI Guide for Small Business Success. and it's available on Amazon as either as a paperback or as a Kindle, um, and a lot of good information, teaching
Great.
a few prompting lessons or exercises, and but it doesn't go heavily into how to prompt because that wasn't the reason we did the book.
Sure. Well, look, if anyone's interested in that, I'll make sure there's a link in the show notes so you can get straight through and order your copy. But I think it gives you a good foundational understanding to what AI is and how we can have some early success. I mean, you've mentioned prompting there. For some listening to this, they may be new to prompting, they may be new to GPT. A lot of people think AI is GPT. I mean, a lot of misconceptions out there. GPT has been so, I guess, gratefully received by many who have found many use cases for it that there's almost become synonymous with AI, that people think AI is GPT. And of course, there are many other tools out there. And I think you highlighted a couple of those automation tools, Zapier being one of those, fantastic workflow tool, which of course can link different AI tools together as well to create an output.
Mm-hmm.
From an HR perspective, if I'm an HR director, HR manager looking at my processes, we know no matter, from top down, that we're always going to be able to find some inefficiencies in our workflows. And I think that's where generative AI and automation tools like Zapier can really, or AI agents even, can really come to the fore to improve and streamline a process. But a lot of people won't necessarily know where to start. They'll feel like they're not experts. So where do we even find an expert to help us with this stuff? How do we start our roadmap? Now, they could start, of course, with your book, which will give them a foundational understanding. But for those listening to this that want to create an AI development roadmap for their organizations, I wonder if you can just talk us through where they should start, how they should start that process, and
Sure.
what they can do to really get a little bit further along in their journey.
Absolutely. So the way I talk to every business owner I talk to, every business leader is first, I want to understand what they're looking to do. I want to understand what that low hanging fruit is, what their ultimate goals are. And then I want to know what tools do they currently use and what their experience currently is. The one thing I tell all businesses is don't go buy all these 14,000 different tools that promise the world. You don't need that in your business. Let's understand kind of where you're trying to go, and part of that exercise may be creating. I do use a prompt within my chatbot. It's called Professor Cortex, and it's a power prompt. It's a prompt that you can only give it a few sentences. It is available free on our website, but I mentioned that because one of the greatest things about AI and Gen AI specifically is to be able to have these conversations on trying to figure out. I know where I want to go. I don't know how to get there, and this is like a great exercise that I use quite often with business owners. Is we tell our power prompt, again, Professor Cortex, where we're looking to go and how can AI maybe help us create that roadmap. We should leverage these type of tools wherever we can, and that I think that's a great way to start leveraging it and having it provide its feedback, since it does have so much information and can access the internet. So take a look at where you want to go, understand what tools that you currently have, understand, and I think this is incredibly important, we touched on it earlier, kind of what is the sentiment around the office and the workplace about AI in general. And maybe that for your organization, that's the place to start, is to assemble a small, I don't want to call it a task force, but maybe a little committee that tries to put the feelers out there on what employees really think of AI, because that'll also help articulate how you're going to roll any tools out to your team. If they're really familiar with AI or are really in favor of it, go faster. But if they're hesitant, I think it's the employer's responsibility to teach the employees why most AI is not harmful and how we could embrace it.
Sure, well, that makes sense. So if we start to get our roadmap in place, then how do you see the role of HR professionals evolving as AI becomes more integrated into these processes? Do you You mentioned at the start of the show that some roles may not be required as much as they are in the future, because we know that AI can take on some of those manual based or tasks, and we can automate much of that. So I would see the role of the HR industry becoming more strategic, because if AI can do the manual stuff, we can focus on the business value kind of stuff. I would love to get it from your side of your lens, really, of how you would see the role of HR professionals evolving as AI becomes more prominent.
That's I think going to be a tough question to answer, because we don't know what it's going to look like in a few months.
Sure.
But or even next week or 6 months down the road. But to your point, I think it will become a little bit more strategic, and trying to figure out where to put these different AI tools. I think it's just really hard, I think, to tell right now, or to even answer that question right now. But I think everybody's going to have to get some kind of AI skills, and even the HR leaders. And this is my wife's chief people officer at her organization, so I get to talk to her firsthand about AI and how they're rolling it out and her perspective on AI within an organization. But I think it's going to be incredibly important that as these tools are developed, that leaders of HR organizations are using these tools, understand how they work. They don't have to be experts, but have a baseline understanding, so they know how to really guide their organization with them. Because businesses that don't use AI will get left behind by businesses that do.
Sure.
So they absolutely need to get some kind of grasp on it.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. So what if you could bring your business into the fore here? Because things like roadmaps are something that you do provide for clients. You talked about how you would potentially guide someone through that process using the Professor Cortex, I think you mentioned, as part of that process as well. Tell us a little bit more about Actionable Ops, how it's contributing to the AI revolution, if you like. Particularly on, you've got a chief people officer as a partner, so you've got some insight there as well. But a little bit more about your organization. If one of our listeners wanted to engage with an expert like yourself, what could they expect to discover?
So, as far as Actionable Ops, we're evolving as the tools are changing and the landscape's kind of changing, and we're kind of doing that. We're doing that right now as we are learning more about these agents, that we've decided to start leveraging them more. Where we're basically, when we first started, more focused on just the implementation of AI from like either a policy or a framework and roadmap perspective. So we're constantly evolving as well. But if they were to reach out, I would have these conversations with them and talking about kind of what the roadmap and some of the things that we've talked about already, kind of what they're doing, what they're looking to do, and just understand what their experience has already been with these with AI and their tools, and kind of what the culture is at the organization about AI. So, and that's really where we start out with folks, and then really try to figure out how can we help them out. We're very transparent. If projects doesn't fit within what we normally do, we have partners that we can always refer that out to. And we're always very transparent. We don't take on projects that I think we would not be successful at, or the client wouldn't be successful at. So, and we do source out and refer out when needed to some of our different partners. But if they reach out, just have a conversation about what they're looking to do, and I think that's the important piece.
Is there a case study or success story you can share where, as an organization that's moved from having maybe very little understanding or use cases or usage of AI, and then you've implemented generative AI and it's significantly improved a process or a result for one of your clients?
The one that immediately comes to mind, going back to the survey that we were talking about, one of our clients was correctional institution on the West Coast, and who had come to us around they were about to do some labor negotiations with their union, and they really wanted to understand what the members of their union were feeling. And so we did, we talked about doing a survey, which is exactly what we did. And I think if I recall correctly, they had 500 or around 500 members. So we surveyed the members. We used free-form fields as much as we can, because we really wanted to do analysis on not only what they were saying, but how they were saying it as well. So I think at the end of the day, we had a 70-ish plus response rate from the members, which to me, that was really high. We were able to get that information, synthesize all the data that was in there, and build out a plan for the leaders of the organization to have those conversations with the union and their attorneys. The ending result is, because of the information that we were able to provide them, they were able to get most of what they were requesting from and I'm trying not to be overly specific on who the organizations were, but on the county that they worked for. And to me, that was a big success, to be able to leverage AI and gathering that information to, we'll call it winning, win with the local county to be able to help these employees, have better lives, which is what we did. Another client of ours is a professional sports, professional athlete. And, we've taken a lot of the information that we've received from their organization and what they're looking to do, and able to build out profiles on this athlete. And when I say that, there's specific things that they're looking to accomplish, specific awards or specific accolades, and we're able to build out these profiles of this athlete to talk about how these awards were won by previous people, and the analytics that we were able to do on who's won the award previously or who's received these different accolades previously, what the commonalities were. And we were able to leverage AI to really give us that deeper insight of how those other athletes were gaining so much attention, and build out these reports that we could provide back to the leadership of this particular pro athlete.
I think there's some interesting examples you raised there, because in the world of HR, they're heavily immersed in data analysis, right, and data analytics to drive, insights that can help with organizational success. I think one of the things that I've seen in the lens that I look at the market through is the development from data analysis to predictive analysis. And I think you gave a good example there with the second example that you gave, the second case study, where you can start to look at trends that may potentially lead to what we think may also happen in the future. That predictive element, which is so important for HR professionals. They're looking at absences, they're looking at wellness. And there's so many different categories of human traits that HR professionals can look into to start tracking performance, to start making predictions on organizational success in the future. If they really start to leverage AI in the right way, it's going to give them a huge amount of insight into the great parts of their company, the bits that can be improved, the bits that can be streamlined, the bits that actually probably need a little bit of work. I think that's really, really exciting. It's kind of that evolution from sort of straight data to predictive data. I don't know if you've seen that with your clients, but I think it's quite an exciting shift.
It is. And that's actually really what got us started in a lot of the AI work that we were doing, is we were doing a lot of data analytics. And Actionable Ops originally was a operations consulting company, but all of the tools that we were using to really help our clients out had some kind of AI, predictive AI piece tool, and especially our analytics tool and our dashboarding tool. And it was doing it in such a unique way, and leveraging the AI to do a lot of the performance analysis and the predictions for us, that really excited me. And I knew that's really where we needed to take the business, was to focus more on that AI piece than the actual operations and analytics piece.
Sure. I know you've mentioned a couple of times on the show, it's very difficult to predict the future, right? We're growing with the technology. I read Mo Gaudat's book called Scary Smart, which talks about bias, which you raised as well, as being very aware of
Mhm.
the AI bias that's prevalent. But also, he says that we're moving into an era of singularity, maybe by 2049, when, at the moment, he says AI is like a 4-year-old child. We need to look after it. We need to manage it and cheat it the right behaviors and the corrective biases, because by 2049, it could be a billion times more powerful than it is right now, which is crazy just to even imagine, right? But I wonder if I could just, for hypothetical reasons, just get a little bit of an idea from yourself where you think the landscape of HR or even the landscape of AI may look like in 5 years from now. Let's call it 2030. How do you think it's going to be impacting our industries and our worlds in just that short time frame? Because we know technology is evolving way faster than it ever has done before.
That I, I don't even know where to start with that one, because if you look at even the last 12 months and where we've gone in the last 12 months with a lot of the AI tools that are out there, it's completely different. Now, in the next year, people are going to be able to create any kind of movie with any kind of actor doing anything they want at the, by just telling the prompt what it wants to do. And that's kind of scary at the same time that we're able to do this really interesting things. I think, you talked about, AI is kind of like a 4-year-old that we got to control. I do have a lot of concerns around some of the deep fakes that are going to happen,
Sure.
and we're going to need to put a lot of guardrails. And I'm not one for big government and a lot of rules and regulations. However, AI is going to become so sophisticated, and it has started going that direction, that people are going to start leveraging AI to take advantage of vulnerable people. Imagine, your grandmother or your mother getting a phone call from you with your phone number, your voice, saying that you were in trouble and you needed her to send you money. That's going to happen. I mean, and I'm sure it could happen right now. So 5 years down the road, cars, I think, will not all of them, but a lot of the cars will be self-driving. I think at the time, um, it's so hard to tell. I think a lot of the tools that we're going to be able to use, where I sit here and have to do a lot of the building of these tools myself. Um, you'll be able to just go and describe what you want this tool to do, and tools like Zapier and it already has a little component that kind of does this, but you'll just be able to tell it, this is what I need. This is the database or the application that I'm trying to build, and it'll go, okay, here you go. Um, so I think those type of things will happen. I I couldn't even begin to tell you.
I appreciate it. It's a big question. Well, look, if nothing else, hopefully it inspires the people listening to the show that it's coming. We need to give
It's
ourselves
here, yeah.
the foundation to it's here. Yeah, the foundation to understand it as best we can. It can start with your book, of course, or I know you offer AI training as well at actionableops.com. So if people want to find out more, you can enroll to some of your training programs on the subject. But it's important we embrace it because it's not going away. And I think there are some people that are hoping it might, and you bury your head in the sand, you're going to get caught out. And I think you mentioned that earlier with the organizations, right? They're going to get left behind. So it's been a really interesting
Absolutely.
conversation, and I appreciate you bringing your wisdom to the show. We're going to open the HR L&D vault. So these are just 3 short, sharp questions for you, Dale. And I'll be interested to see what you have to say. So let's start with number 1. If you could give one universal piece of advice to the HR professionals that listen to this show, what would it be?
Universal piece of advice: embrace AI. Don't be scared of it. It's like, the internet. It's more powerful than the internet, but it was like the internet back in the early '90s. It's a tool. It's here, as we were just talking about. Embrace it. Try to leverage it and adapt.
Beautiful. Number 2, reflecting on your career start, and I appreciate that your route to this show is not necessarily through traditional routes that most of my guests have come from, in like your wife, for example, your partner. What advice would you offer to those just beginning their journey in today's world of work?
Just beginning their journey. I think that for younger people, that landscape has changed so much, especially when we start talking about remote work and non-remote type of works. But if they're just beginning their journey, find what you really love doing and do it. Don't ever get into a place where 20, 30 years down the road, you've done something that you weren't passionate about. A boss told me when I was at Microsoft early in my career, do what you love and the money will come. I don't know if that's exactly true, but I think if you do what you love and you're passionate about, your entire well-being
Yeah.
it'll increase your well-being and your overall happiness.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I work in the world of recruitment. If you do what you love, you actually don't care so much about whether the money comes anyway, right? I mean, obviously, it's great if
Right,
it does, but if you love what you do every single day and you jump out of bed with a spring in your step, you know what? We can make everything work. And last but
right.
no means least, from your experience, what common trait or behavior have you observed in all of the effective and sort of great leaders that you've worked with or worked alongside?
So, can you repeat that again? You kind of broke up right there at the
Yeah,
end.
the kind of common trait or behavior that you've seen in some of the great leaders that you've either partnered with or worked underneath or worked alongside.
So the traits. And I could tell you there. I jokingly refer to people in my career as my Microsoft managers, or not my Microsoft managers, my McDonald's managers, meaning that if they were managing a McDonald's, I would quit and go work for them there. And there's nothing wrong with working at McDonald's, so I don't want to
Sure.
imply that, but you know, these were leaders and there was two of them, one at a startup and one at Microsoft, where they were charismatic. And to me, charismatic is being having charisma is built from two traits, um, and those traits are warmth and confidence. Um, and both of these leaders were very charismatic. They were kind and they were caring. They wanted to really elevate their employees, which made me want to work harder for them. Um, so, and that's I think the number one trait. You have to have charisma and executive presence, but charisma is the number one thing that even I strive for, to have really good
Fantastic.
charisma.
No, what a great place to leave the show. Like, we've had Stephen Covey on the show, and he said, the best leaders now need to trust and inspire. We've moved a long way away from the command and control way of management and leadership. And I think if you've had people that you found charismatic, that you've been, really inspired by, Dale, what a great place to round off the show, and certainly great traits and behaviors to have in all leaders for sure. But for those that are interested in finding out more, of course, I've mentioned your website already, which is actionableops.com. I will put a link in the show notes for those that want to find out more about that. I want to find out about the AI training you give, some of the solutions you provide. There's a whole wealth of services. Whether you're AI ready, you can do an assessment. I think you can find your book as well, The Ultimate AI Guide to Small Business
Sure.
Success, also on your website. But you mentioned the Text Cortex AI tool as well. And I think there's a link I can share with our users there as well, which I think is actionableops.com/text cortex. Can you tell us
Yeah.
briefly a little bit about that tool?
So Text Cortex, everybody's familiar with what, Chat GPT or Perplexity or so. And what those tools are basically wrappers for like a GPT, as you talked about. So you have like GPT 3.5, GPT 4, and Chat GPT is pretty much just the web interface for those tools. So Text Cortex is basically that, but they can talk to not only the GPT models, so GPT 3, 4, O, some of the different Claude models that are available, some of the different Llama models. You can talk to Stable Diffusion. There's a new one called Flux, which creates amazing images. So it is its own power copilot. They do have a Chrome extension, so it could potentially replace Grammarly. It can write your emails or proofread your emails or expand your emails, however you want to do it. It also has an API, and so you can connect other tools to it. And it has, the knowledge bases, which was really important to me when I discovered them, because I wanted to put all my customer information in a specific knowledge base so I can have conversations about my company and how we can help that specific customer, so you can combine different types of knowledge bases, which I didn't see anybody else do. Now, the important thing also I want to make sure we touch on when I talk about client information, don't ever give customer client personal information to the ChatGPT web interface for the most part, as it trains their models off a lot of that data. Text Cortex, they're based in Germany. And because they're also leveraging the company's APIs, they're not training the models. Your client data is safe. And one of the reasons why I like this company is they have the GDPR requirements of Europe, but they also have the German regulations, which are much more strict than even GDPR. So I'm fairly comfortable that my client's data is safe, my personal data is safe within Text Cortex, which is always something to keep in mind, especially if you're using these GPTs on ChatGPT and you're connecting to these third-party tools. You really don't have any idea what those tools are doing or the data that it's collecting, or how they actually work, which is something that's very important. As I become more familiar with actually deploying our agents to GPTs, it kind of hit us like a 100-pound brick that we have to be careful with what data and where we push it out to as well. So.
Sure. Oh, look, it sounds like there's value here. If you're still with us on the show at the minute, that's a link that people need to be connecting to, right? There's a Chrome extension. This could save you a whole heap of time and really give you a great resource at the same time as well. So really thankful to you, Del, for sharing that link and for all of your wisdom and insights today on today's show. It's been fantastic. For those that want to connect with Dale and find out more, I will also share Dale's LinkedIn page and those sites that we've mentioned as well. So you can click straight through to the show notes to actionableo.com. Just want to say a huge thankful once more to Dale Thomas for joining me today on the HR L&D podcast. I hope you'll all agree it's been a really insightful conversation. Hopefully there's lots of things for our listeners to take away, lots of things to explore. If you haven't started already, now is the time to start your AI roadmap to success. Of course, Dale's team can support you with that, but if nothing else, re-listen to this show. It'll help you get started and start that journey sooner or later, because it's going to be, or sooner rather than later, because it's coming whether we like it or not. And of course, if you're an HR L&D professional listening to the show, you need support with an HR-related vacancy. Well, that's where we can come in at JJ Recruitment. We do also leverage many of these wonderful AI tools for our own purposes, but we never forget that human element that's so important to the nuance of recruitment. So do get in touch with myself and my team at jgarecruitment.com. Just need to say one huge final thank you to Dale Thomas for joining me today on the HR L&D podcast. It's been my pleasure, and I look forward to being next episode real soon. Dale, thank you.
Thank you very much.
This episode is sponsored by Deel. That's DEEL. Deel is your forever people platform built for global payroll and HR. So whether you're an enterprise business, a small company, or something in between, Deel works for your team. Hire and onboard talent in over 150 countries in minutes and run payroll in over 100 countries in just a few clicks. And with Deel's suite of AI-powered learning and development tools, you can even customize career roadmaps, performance assessments, and more. So are you ready to transform your global payroll and HR processes? If you are, click the link in the show notes to book a demo with Deel today. That's DEEL.